Yes. And if we get finished early, y'all have the rest of the time to work on the assignment. So I'm trying to, I believe we finished off with this one here yesterday.
Am I crazy? Is this what you want?
751.
Oh, here you go.
So, okay, yeah, we finished with this one yesterday. All right. Restrictions for this here. Because x and 2 are the two spots that we have in the denominator, but the 2 we can't plug in a value for it. It's just it's 2. So the x is the only spot where we can plug in a value, and it cannot be 0. Because whenever it's just by itself, we don't have addition or subtraction with it, it's just going to be 0. Now, what do we need to multiply everything by to get these fractions to go away? 2x. Because for our first term, the x cancels out. The middle term, the 2 would cancel. And the last one, it would be the x. Leaving us with 6 plus 5x. Negative 24. Now, since we don't have an x squared term like the last one we did, we don't have to get this equal to 0. We just need to get x by itself. And what's the first thing we can do to get x by itself? We can subtract 6 from each side. Yes. Because our 6 minus 6 would be 0. It goes 5x. 24 plus 6. Because we're essentially adding two negatives. So, and last thing we need to do to solve for x. Divide both sides by 5. When we divide both sides by 5, we do get x. So x would equal negative 6. Because if it had been x squared, yes. Thank you. And it's not one of our restrictions, so that is the final answer. Questions on this here? Let's look at the next one. So if we look at our restrictions, so x minus 4, we need to see what's going to make it 0, and x equals 0. So x can't be 0. Add 4. X equals 4. So x cannot be 4 or 0. Now what do we need to multiply everything by? So x minus 4, because our middle term needs to be multiplied by x minus 4 and x. Because our x for this one here would cancel out with our x. Because 1x times x minus 4, because all of that stays since nothing was simplified, minus 2 times x, or 2x, equals 4 times. Questions on this here? Now at this point we can do some simplifying. We can distribute the x times x is x squared minus negative 4x, or x squared minus 4x, minus 2x, because that's already simplified. We don't have to distribute. But the other side, we need to distribute 4. So we get 4x minus, almost, 4 times 4. 16. Yes. Now at this point, we can combine like terms because we do have one set of like terms. Our negative 4x minus 2x is negative 6x, because we have our negative 4 minus 2, or negative 4 plus negative 2, which would be negative 6. Now this one here, unlike the last one, we do have an x squared term. So we need to get it equal to 0. Because when we don't have that x squared, that x to a power, if it had just been, that wasn't there, we just had negative 6x equals 4x minus 16, we get x by itself. But since we have that x squared term, we need this equal to 0. So what's the first thing we can do? We wouldn't subtract it, we would. We can add 6x to both sides. Because our negative 6x plus 6x would be 0, leaving us with x squared is equal to 10x minus 16. What can we do next? Because we're trying to get it equal to 0, yes? So, because the whole point with our quadratics is get it equal to 0. We need 0 on one of the two sides. So we have 10x and 16 on one side. We can subtract x squared from both sides. And if we subtract x squared from both sides, we get 0 is equal to negative x squared plus 10x minus 16. Now at this point here, we can graph it, we can factor it, quadratic formula, we can do any of these methods here. If we wanted to graph it, we can grab the graphing calculator and say negative x squared plus, it was 10x minus 16, and hit graph. And we see that it crosses the x-axis in 2 points. Because again, we're trying to find out what value of x will make the y value be 0. 2 and 8. So our two solutions for this are x is equal to 2 and x is equal to 8. Questions on this here? Now, if we wanted to graph, or not graph this, but factor it, we would need this first term to be positive. So we can multiply or divide everything by negative 1. Because it would give us this here. Now, if we factor this, 2 sets of parentheses with 3 spaces. Since the third term is positive, the signs are the same. And match sign middle term, so negative and negative. Factors of x squared are x and x. Factors of 16 are 15, 2 and 8, 4 and 4. Well, which one would we want? 2 and 8. Because we already found the solution. It is 2 and 8. Now, when we're solving by factoring, whenever we have 2 or more things, multiply together equals 0, one of them must be 0. So we're saying x minus 2 is equal to 0. x minus 8 is 0. Well, for x minus 2, we would. Telling us x is equal to 2. And 8. Which is the same thing we got from graphing. Questions on this here. And what's interesting is the graph of this other equation, x squared minus 10x plus 16, for the most part does look very different from the one we graphed to begin with, but where it crosses the x-axis is still the same. Because at negative, or at 2 and 8, the y value is still 0. The other y values changed, but our solutions stayed the same. Still 2 and 8. Questions on this here? Give you all the rest of the time to work on the assignment.